Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello, I'm Lee Hutchison.
And I'm Andi.
And welcome to the Senate floor.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Well, hello again. As you heard there, Matt Hansen isn't able to join us today, so I've had to call upon a friend of both me and Matt's to fill in today, Andi from the Women at Warp podcast, and what a pleasure it is to have her here. So welcome, Andi.
Hello.
Yeah, so people might not know you that listen to the Senate floor. We have some Star Trek fans that listen, but many people might not know you. So do you want to give us a bit of a lowdown about your geek cred and
Sure.
just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm most well known probably in the Star Trek fandom for my podcast Women at Warp, which is a Star Trek podcast about how women are portrayed on Star Trek. But I also run a Twitter account called @FirstTimeTrek, where I live tweet my first time through Star Trek. I'm currently on Voyager and DS9, very slowly making my way through those episodes. But in general, I've been a geek my whole life. I mean, back in the day, my mom had to throw away Doom 2 because I wouldn't stop playing it. I do a lot of gaming. I love sci-fi, fantasy, Doctor Who, Buffy, Harry Potter, the usual suspects.
And this seems like a kind of interesting point where we're kind of going to dive in. Like, for whenever I've listened to you on podcasts, when you started to get into the podcasting biz, as it were, it was always that you were giving your kind of insight on, like, first-time Star Trek. Like, it was like this kind of novelty of, like, this person's not seen Star Trek. Tell us all about what you think of Star Trek. And seasoned folk that had been in it for years would listen to someone with, like, fresh eyes, and it was always kind of fascinating. And it's almost something similar tonight that I was really, really keen to get Andi on because I love British, like, movies, TV culture, reality shows, and I don't really get the opportunity to talk about that on the Senate floor. Like, I don't really have that much in common with Matt and Tristan and co when it comes to these sorts of shows. And for some reason, you really are into these kind of shows, these bake-offs, comedies, something that are essentially just part of British tradition. You're really into, and I find that utterly fascinating.
Yeah, I am a bit of an Anglophile, I will not lie. I kind of go in spurts when it comes to, like, international type things. So I also went through a period in college where I was watching nothing but, like, East Asian films. And then I was, like, completely obsessed with, like, Australian soap operas. And then it was the Korean soap operas. But the British stuff has been a love of mine for a while. I think there's a shared cultural sensibility in a lot of ways between Americans and the British, so it's interesting. It's different, but it's relatable still. So that's cool.
Before we dive into the British, I've got to ask about the Australian soaps. Are we talking about Home and Away here?
I was thinking of Dance Academy, actually.
Dance Academy? I don't think I ever watched that one.
Dance Academy is amazing. It is about a bunch of teenagers that go to a dance academy and have lots of romantic shenanigans and then, do ballet dramatically. It's amazing.
Well, like, for me as a student, Home and Away was the kind of, you'd go back to your student halls, your student flats, and you and your mates would watch Home and Away, famously known as the show Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan got their break in. And we'd watch this kind of Australian soap opera.
Yeah, you want to know how I actually know what you're talking about, even if only vaguely?
Fire away.
Because there is a book called Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging.
Oh,
and
yes.
it's a book series about a teenage girl, and she's like, at one point, she doesn't want to go to Australia because the only thing she knows about Australia is Home and Away and Kylie. And I have this thing where if I don't understand a reference, I will look it up. So I want to know what it is. So that's how I know about that. Ron Weasley taught me a lot about random British phrases, and I had no idea what a satsuma was before I read Harry Potter, and I was like, why is Arthur Weasley peeling a satsuma? What the hell is a satsuma? And so I look it up. Treacle tart. What is treacle tart?
I've actually seen. Well, the movie came out. It's called Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging the movie. I actually went to see that movie. I've got like a cinema pass, so I can see anything I want. So I watched it as a double bill with Wall-E. So I was sitting in this cinema, which was packed with like teenage girls watching Angus Thongs, and I was just sat there like at the back myself,
like a creep.
The only person that wasn't like a dad that had been dragged along, and I was getting quite emotional. She's got this like party at the end. I don't know if you've seen the film. Alan Davies is in it.
Parts of
so
it, but I
your
don't really
encouragement.
remember it, to be honest.
Yeah, Alan Davies is in there, so there's your hook. And I was kind of at the back of the screen, just like, oh, it's just so sad that she's going to go away and the friends have thrown her a party. I was so like in tears, like kind of watching this Angus Thongs movie. And I think I had the DVD I picked up for like $2 or something.
Well, if you ever have
it's a bit
some
of a guilty
time,
pleasure.
you might want to check out the books. They are hilarious. They are so funny. It's kind of Bridget Jonesy, only for a teenage girl rather than a stunted man or stunted woman child, I should say.
Of course. Like, and you were saying like Harry Potter there, that I'm always kind of in the minority here, that I've never been a Harry Potter fan. I saw Chamber of Secrets on a date when I was like 15. I've seen like 15 minutes of The Goblet of Fire, and I'm not like a Harry Potter fan at all, but there's a Harry Potter marathon on in a few weeks at my local cinema where they're doing it like all the movies over a weekend, and I've always said, I'll watch the Harry Potter movies when they're like in a cinema or something like that. So I feel there's a bit of pressure on me to go finally watch these Harry Potter movies, and especially having a girlfriend that's Harry Potter daft, I'm kind of my mixture of references and working with students. I don't know what they're talking about half the time when they're quoting Harry Potter. So I kind of feel like what people are with me to Star Trek is what I am to people with Harry Potter.
Well, I mean, I think the movies are fine. I think the first movie is a train wreck, but the rest of them are decent enough. I like the Deathly Hallows, and I really like Prisoner of Azkaban. But, I mean, for me, Harry Potter is the books 100%. So, like, I kind of consider the movies to be like, I don't know, like this fun extra thing, like an extra version of Harry Potter. But the one that I love is the books. I reread the books probably once a year at least.
Yeah, like where I live in Edinburgh, like probably better. You're better suited to kind of swap out with me, because like I love Sizzlers in America, so I can give you the Harry Potter thing as a fair swap. Like in and around Edinburgh, like where I stay, I kind of stay quite centrally, and like there's so much Harry Potter history kicking about that there's the Elephant House isn't far from where I stay, and that's where she famously wrote the first book. And you go in there and you get all the kind of hipsters on their MacBooks thinking they're writing the next Harry Potter. And you recommend this place to like Harry Potter fans, and it's always in the weirdest way, because you go, you should check out the toilets. Like the toilets are plain white, and it's just filled with like Harry Potter art, people writing like quotes, their favorite Harry Potter references, and it's like this really posh cafe, but with like the most graffitied like bathroom in the world. And then just like down from there is a grave for like a Thomas Riddle. I can't remember the connection to Harry Potter with that. There's a mural to Diagon Alley nearby. And actually last night, me and my girlfriend were out for a meal. We were driving back into Edinburgh, and I went, oh, would you like to see where J.K. Rowling used to live? So we kind of drove past there, and in kind of the wild fantasy, I'm sure, for Harry Potter fans, she used to stay at a place called the White House, and it's got like the kind of old turrets outside. It kind of looks like a little house castle in itself. And I used to actually bump into J.K. Rowling quite often when I was up at uni. She stayed in and around the Merchiston area, where the uni's based, and you would see J.K. Rowling at the Starbucks, and all the stuff's just like Harry Potter's everywhere, but it's just something I've never connected with, and it seems like it's got such a huge international audiences, and it kind of defines what British culture is to a lot of them.
I mean, a lot of people our age grew up with it, and I mean, for the most part, I've liked a lot of different kinds of British culture, so I wouldn't say my only entry point was ever Harry Potter, but there was plenty of like, especially like slang phrases, like taking the mickey. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'll never forget reading that and being like, what does that mean? It's like, are you taking the mickey? And I'm like, what? Because if you think about it, there are a lot of phrases like colloquialisms that you can figure out. That one I cannot figure out. I don't know where that came from.
I think it's taking the Mickey Mouse, which is kind of slang for taking this is a family show, the urine, as it were. So I think that's that Mickey Mouse is, the T-I-S-S word. like it's the same John Mills on our network. He's always kind of picking up on my Scottish like slang, like blootered for getting drunk, blagged for grabbing something that's free, all these different things. And yeah, it certainly is kind of an interesting index, I think, for American audiences. Like sometimes I wonder, like with this podcast, like how many people actually understand what I'm talking about?
Well, I mean, okay, so I love Luther, and one thing that you should bear in mind is a lot of times that when things become international, it's because of Netflix. Something hits American Netflix, that's when, I mean, this is where Great British Bake Off took off, is they put a season on Netflix, and suddenly all these Americans are like, what? Mm-hmm. What is this? Where's the more, please? And so they have only one season on Netflix. But anyways, I love Luther. And I was showing it to my mom, and this was on her TV, so she doesn't have the ability to have subtitles. Now, I always have subtitles on just because, like, that's just something silly that I just always have them on. But I didn't notice how, like, I would have zero trouble understanding the Irish kid. Like, zero trouble. Like, and he slurs. It's not just his accent. Like, his vocal style is very slurry. So he would be saying things, and I would have to pause it and literally repeat it for my mom because she couldn't understand a word he was saying. And there's a lot of characters like that. One that was really helpful for me was on Misfits. There's that one character, what's her name? Kelly, maybe? I think. The chav, as you would say.
Oh, yes, the chav. I haven't heard that phrase in a while. That used to be a big thing in the noughties. There was also a famous phrase, hug a hoodie, when it was like politicians, like, how can we talk to chavs? Hug a hoodie, let them know you care. I really don't think the chavs cared that much.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I ever heard the term chav was Doctor Who, because there's an episode where, the Moisturizing Me episode, I can't remember the title of it right now, but she switches, the follow-up episode with that, she switches bodies, and she's in Rose's body, and she goes, I'm a chav! And I'm like, what is a chav? So I looked it up, but, like, I got to the point where I could understand all of Kelly's slang, too. And that was tough. And so now I've realized how much my understanding of like slang, British slang, and like different accents come from media. So like I can recognize a northern accent if they sound like the Ninth Doctor, or if they sound like oh my gosh, what's her name? Gwen from Torchwood.
Oh yeah, the Welsh one.
Yeah, I'm like, that's Welsh, or Rob Brydon. I'm like, oh, okay, Welsh. So, like, I hear an accent, I'm like, who does that sound like? And then I can tell the accents even at this point. Which is,
so, like, you were...
Or Irish.
Yeah.
Do they say things like Bernard Black? Then, okay, Irish.
Like, you were saying, like, Netflix is a big entry for people into British culture. Was that how you kind of got into British culture?
For the TV, definitely. Although it was more Hulu. I don't know if you guys have.
Yeah,
Hulu
we've got Hulu.
there.
We've also got electricity.
I don't know. I don't know what's international and what's not. So Hulu is more for TV, and it has a really deep bench of British television. That's how I found Green Wing and Black Books and some of the more obscure, like older stuff. But I mean, the IT crowd was Netflix. So it's the internet. Essentially, It's the internet. 'Cause making things more available. And then YouTube. Mm-hmm. YouTube is huge. It's all, like, I try not to use YouTube if I can help it because I like to consume media legally. Because I am of the firm belief that artists deserve to be paid. But there's no other way for me to watch Great British Bake Off than on YouTube.
Now, we've touched upon this a few times. This is like a common love of us. And I try my hardest not to tweet anything about the Great British Bake Off. Because I'm like, I know that there's people out with the UK that are not watching this program. So for people that
I don't know how.
Aren't me and you.
It's the best show of all time.
Like, I can only imagine next to no one that listens to this podcast has a clue what the Great British Bake Off is. So, do you want to tell people what the Great British Bake Off is, Andy?
Sure, and I think you're underestimating Americans' love of Great British Bake Off. It is definitely a thing now. But the Great British Bake Off is essentially a baking reality show competition. But in America, they would be like stabbing each other, and then they would be having like behind the scenes interviews where they all talk smack about each other and how they're not there to make friends. In the Great British Bake Off, everybody's nice. And they're like, oh no, your cake is falling. I will help you prop it back up with fondant. Or, the judges, Mary and Paul, are like, okay, so your everything's collapsed, but it tastes good. And okay, so your piping is awful, but these macarons are real good. Like, there's a positivity to it. Everybody there wants you to do well, if that makes sense. And it's such a breath of fresh air. I can't even tell you. I got into it just recently. Honestly, I was super depressed, and I was like, this world is going straight to the void. Help. And my friend was like, you need to watch Great British Bake Off. It will restore your faith in humanity. And it did. And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, how is this so dramatic when it's so nice? The fact that they managed to keep it interesting without any like manipulation of our feelings or fake drama or cruelty, really. I mean, that's the kind of the bedrock of reality TV shows these days.
Like when you watch,
It's
like,
amazing.
say the American Food Networks, like it's exactly what you're saying about the American
I
shows.
mean, we brought Gordon Ramsay over here to do Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah,
Hell's Kitchen.
Like Kitchen Nightmare, like that almost sums up the huge difference. Like in the UK, like Kitchen Nightmares, and there's a Kitchen Nightmares USA, and
it's
like,
so different.
yeah,
It's so different.
Like Kitchen Nightmares UK is like, yeah, he kicks up a fuss, he swears like a typical Scot, and he says like your gravy's awful, and you can imagine the superlatives.
But he's nice.
But
he wants them to do better.
Oh yeah, like they talk about, what you should do. There's local things here in the business. Why don't you go to these farmers markets? There's all these productive things, and then you watch the American one, and it's all like kind of like emotional drama. Like instead of like big solutions to like the cooking side of how to cook, how to improve, how to run a proper restaurant, which are like kind of the bedrock of the UK one. That's kind of like minor to the family drama, and it's so frustrating to watch. It's really, really awful. But yeah, Bake Off is like, it's got so much heart in it, and I got into it kind of a few seasons in, and I think it's what we would call here in the UK as wonderfully twee, where it's so kind of heartwarming, and like there's no malice or harm to be done to anyone, and it's really cute. And I think that comes from the kind of the hosts, Mel and Sue. And I read an interview with them recently where, like, in the beginning, they kind of were going down that American route where it was all about the drama. There was, like, tears. And what happens is that when, like, the contestants start crying, and in American, like, cooking shows or whatever, they would zoom in on that straight away, like, look at that guy crying away because he can't do a macaroon or a lemon drizzle cake. And what Mel and Sue would do is, because it's on the BBC, aka the Big British Castle, you can't really get away with swearing at all. So what they would do is they would go near the contestants that were crying and just start cursing, like saying swear words that would make the footage unusable. So if someone's crying, there's Mel and Sue using the D's, the C's, the F's, everything to make the footage unusable. So that's never going to make the final cut. And that they kind of had that influence that they were like, we don't want to make a show where it's people going to be negative. So they always got, like, they were always like caring for them and making sure that like there was just this air of positivity. And it is such a wonderful show that you're watching people bake muffins and like 2-tiered ridiculous cakes. And it's so lovely to watch. I'm a big fan of it.
I mean,
I just love it.
It walks that line between sweet and saccharine perfectly. So it's not like cheap, like, oh, kind of stuff. It's just like, here are some nice people. They're going to spend a weekend in the country making cake, and that's a nice thing. It's nice. And then, of course, there's a humor to it. I mean, the humor is actually quite witty and quite dirty in some cases, which is such a cool contrast to how happy everything is. I have the hugest crush on Sue. Like, I would swim across the Atlantic Ocean right now if she was single. Like, it's ludicrous. So, I mean, I don't know. It's a mixture of, like, Mel and Sue being so upbeat and hilarious, and then Paul with his glower, and then you've got Mary Berry just enthusiastically eating everything that has alcohol in it, like wink wink, and then all of the yeah, exactly,
everyone's favorite granny.
all of the contestants like are nice to each other, and you can see them like interacting in positive ways while they're all trying to do this sometimes very difficult thing. I mean, some of those technicals, I sit there and I'm like, how? I just watched the one where they did I don't remember what kind of French cake it was, but it was like this thing where you made a Swiss roll and then you put it on the outside and then you put mousse inside and then jelly on top and it looked like a brain. I saw that thing. I was like, there's no way they can make that without ever seeing it. How? And then they all did it. I was so impressed. I would be so terrible at it.
Yeah. It's like the best of British, and like obviously recently for people listening like that might not know, it's actually going to be moving from the BBC to Channel 4, which is like huge news. So like the production company have been paid 75 million to bring it to Channel 4, and obviously Mary Berry, Mel and Sue aren't going over, but Paul Hollywood is. Nothing to do with, I'm sure, his divorce payments. So he's going to be transferring over, and like it's been like the big news. It was on the front pages, like updates of.
It was all over the news.
Like, are Mel and Sue going to transfer over? Mary's staying. Paul's going over, and then like the joke is that. Yeah,
drama.
Big joke is that Channel 4 paid 75 million for a tent and Paul Hollywood. So I'm not too sure how it's going to translate on to Channel 4, but I'm not too enthusiastic.
Yeah, I love Paul Hollywood, and I think he does play an important role. He's like the stern, masculine energy in the tent full of upbeat ladies, but he is also, to me, the least vital ingredient to that show. Like, without Mel and Sue there to tease him and Mary to soften him, he just is kind of the guy that glares at you about your cupcakes and like makes you feel sad.
Like the culture of the show is like generated by kind of Mel and Sue, and it has been from the beginning. And then we've got the Mary Berry and Paul Hollywood, their kind of like relationship, and I just don't know how they're gonna replace that. And I don't know if that's the sort of, like, it's just like then another baking show, and Channel 4 doesn't have it has a great history of making original programming and other programming. It's not got a great reputation for cooking shows, unlike the BBC, which has the Bake Off, Great British Menu, all these different things, Saturday's Kitchen, all these. It's like it's a huge part of the BBC, so it's going to be really weird to see how Channel 4 go with that. And obviously they have ad breaks unlike the BBC, so I can imagine the historical parts of the show will have to come out. So I'm not too enthusiastic, but I'll tune in. I'll certainly give it a fair shake, but not too hopeful.
An episode.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel bad though for whoever they try and hire to be Mel and Sue. It'll be like I remember when they were thinking about, or they floated the name, there was a rumor that Sue was going to take over Top Gear.
Oh yes, I remember that.
And all these whiny man children on the internet were just like QQing into their cornflakes, like, what? Sue, how can we have her? It's going to be the opposite. Somebody tries to replace Sue and Mel on Bake Off. I feel real bad for whoever that person is.
Yeah, the Top Gear thing was like, that's been a disaster in itself. Like, I'm not a Top Gear fan, but my girlfriend is, and a lot of my friends. And like, I tuned in to watch this first episode, and then they went with Chris Evans and Matt LeBlanc. Matt LeBlanc worked perfectly, but like Chris Evans was people like they were the same as Sue. They didn't like him, and then he was like been hounded out by a season, so they're already having to recast that. So for all we know, like Mel and Sue might actually pop up on Top Gear. We just don't know.
I might actually watch it if they do.
Now, you were saying earlier on that you're kind of like a fan of some of the Channel 4 comedies as well, like kind of the Green Room.
Oh, yeah, the panel shows. Oh, my gosh. I am obsessed with basically all of the panel shows. So we don't have anything quite like that in America. Yeah. We have the late night talk shows. So like Jimmy Fallon is doing some sketches that kind of resemble this, in which he has famous people play games with him.
And there's At Midnight as well, isn't there? Like on Comedy Central, I think, with Chris Hardwick.
Oh, maybe. I've never seen it. But for the most part, the idea of like these panel shows where you basically just essentially you have a structure, but the rest of it is just a bunch of comedians and personalities making jokes is so like uniquely British to me. And then so the ones I love the most, my absolute favorite is Would I Lie to You, because David Mitchell is like the love of my life.
Preach it.
David Mitchell, everything about him. And then I like 8 out of 10 Cats too. John Richardson's another one that I really like. And there's just a lot of these kinds of shows where it's just the Big Fat Quizzes are a good example.
Oh, yes.
So they put those on, those are all over YouTube. So I just kind of like, I think what happened, and I'm trying to think back years ago to when I started being obsessed with these. I think what happened is I loved Peep Show, and so I was looking up like best moments of David Mitchell. I'm like, the first thing that comes up if you start looking up best moments of David Mitchell is like David Mitchell rants, like classic David Mitchell rants. And half of them are from Would I Lie to You, where he's like screaming about fox hunting and stuff. And so then I was like, what is this show? And then they're all over YouTube. You can get full seasons. And then I just started watching that one. And then I started watching that one, you know, and I just hopped from season to season. And that's how I found Countdown. I figured out Countdown because of the IT crowd. There's the episode where Moss is on
Yes,
Countdown.
it's a classic.
That's an amazing, amazing episode, but bear in mind, when I first saw it, I had zero idea what Countdown was, so I was like, what is this? And I figured it out pretty quickly. I think that's a good example of an episode that works, even though the cultural reference doesn't translate. Like, it still works because it's just so classic and wonderfully written. But after that, I was like, what is this show? It's kind of like, we have Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune here that I would say is the most likely kind of similar show. And then I started watching 8 out of 10 Cats does Countdown. I mean, it's just like you hop from thing to thing. It's all over the place. But I mean, you can go from place to place on YouTube and like it'll have the suggested videos and just go to the next one. And that's how I found a lot of these. That's how I found the Big Fat Quizzes.
Like, it's a rabbit hole, isn't it? Like YouTube for discovering like all these new programs that I don't know if you know, but like Would I Lie to You actually has been on the go for a long, long time, and it used to be like a daytime TV program in between like programs about antique hunting and people buying homes. It used to be on during the daytime as kind of like just kind of normal daytime TV where it didn't have a kind of more comedic edge. It was quite safe. Like Sandy Todvig was the host, and yeah, it was kind of just one of those shows. And then like a good few years ago now, it became like this late night show, and like Countdown in itself was one of the first ever programs shown on Channel 4. It was on the first day, and it like has always had this kind of cult appeal with students, that students used to tune in and watch it. Like they would watch it after like a day at uni, and like that was a lot of the crowd was like old people and students. And one of my favorite programs and one of my favorite like commentators, Charlie Brooker, who's behind Black Mirror, which is going to air in a few weeks on Netflix. He did this amazing show where he went
Charlie
to America.
Brooker.
And what he did was he showed clips from British TV shows, and one of them was Countdown. And Countdown is like, the set is like so cheap. All it is like a big clock. There's a guy behind the counter, and then you've got this woman that's behind a board of numbers and a board of letters. And they showed this clip to Americans that there they were, just like picking out the consonant vowels, small numbers, large numbers. And these Americans in the like this group show kind of just started laughing at it, going, it looks so cheap. Like there's a computer that can do that number thing for them. Like they thought like Countdown was the most ridiculous thing ever. Like Americans are so used to like big budget everything that they really struggled to get their head round.
They have a
like,
lot
this Countdown.
of
Why is it so cheap?
nerve.
It's one of my favorite little clips.
Wheel of Fortune is really just a big wheel, and then Jeopardy is like a wall of televisions. Like, get over yourself, man. Besides, Countdown is charming, so I don't understand. It's that thing
Yes.
where, like, if they tried to do and I think they have, by the way, but I didn't bother to look it up because I'm sure it's a train wreck. A Great American Bake Off, like, I don't know.
They did, I think, yeah. And was Paul Hollywood not involved in that?
I think I vaguely saw that they did it, but it was canceled and I haven't seen it. So maybe it was amazing and just nobody watched it. But to me, The American need to make everything expensive and giant and garish just would ruin a lot of these. Like, they tried to do an American version of Coupling, which was a disaster. They tried to do an American version of The IT Crowd, which was painful, absolutely painful to watch. It didn't even get a pilot. I mean, oh God, it's just some of the stuff doesn't translate.
Like, I think Skins was an example of that. That's a show that
was
you've
awful.
mentioned. Okay, like, they made an American series that was garbage, and it's actually on YouTube. And if anyone gets the chance, like, Peep Show, one of the best comedies, period. And like, they made an American version of it. Had the guy from The Big Bang Theory that's not Sheldon, not the Indian guy, not the guy that lives at home with his mom. I don't know. That's obviously leaves that one guy, the second guy,
Johnny Galecki.
and he plays Mark in it. That's the one. And they made it, and it was so awful. Like, there's like, it's almost like a VHS quality like version of it. It's on YouTube, and it's just this disastrous pilot. Like, The Red Dwarf, that's another brilliant British sci-fi show. They tried to make an American pilot of that. That's on YouTube as well, and that was awful. The only thing that was going for it on a geek level was actually Terry Farrell was in it. She filmed this pilot where we all talk about, we've spoken about it on the Nerd Party before, like, there's not enough representation in casting. And there's a character in Red Dwarf where, if you've not seen it in America, Red Dwarf is about the ship gets kind of caught in time, and like the crew die, and there's this couple of people in stasis. They survive and wake up like thousands upon thousands of years in the future, and a cat actually evolves into a human during this timescape. And this cat becomes like this 70s style kind of like fashion obsessed, like flamboyantly camp black cat.
Yeah, it's...
And Terry Farrell plays this cat.
Oh
and
my gosh.
I was actually at Star Trek Europe recently, where she was... the first question someone asked her was like, what was it like being the cat in the Red Dwarf pilot? And she went, to be cast as a flamboyant black male cat in a TV show was the dream role. Thankfully for all of us fans, it didn't get picked up, or else she would never have done Deep Space Nine. But like, America's this history of making really bad attempts at British humor and like just not getting the humor. Like, there's always the kind of cliche here in the UK, and we sneer at America, like the Americans don't get irony. And I think the problem is, like, you see, especially in The Office, like the first season of The American Office, which I actually think is pretty fantastic for the most part, is that UK does like kind of kitchen sink drama, like grim, like real life really well, and that works. But when it's kind of in America, it's more depressing. Like, the first season of The American Office is like, this is really not pleasant at all. It doesn't work with what we kind of associate with America, which is kind of, yeah, get up and go and excitement. And when like The American Office season 2 kicked off, that was much better suited, I think.
Yeah, I mean, The Office is probably one of the very few success stories, and I think really the reason is they stopped trying to copy what worked about the British Office and started translating it to, because the British version of The Office is very specifically about what it's like to be working class in an office in England. You know, it's about a place, it's about a culture. So when they tried to translate it, some of it worked, some of it didn't. But what they finally did was they're like, okay, instead of trying to steal all their jokes, let's make a show about being an American office worker and what it's like in America. And that made it worked after that, you know? It was like, what are the things that you want to say about the American workplace? Because they're different. I think that a lot of Americans get kind of seduced into thinking that our culture is the same, and it's not. There are vast differences, and yeah, I mean, I can't watch the British Office. I've found that I have an issue with watching remakes. If I've seen one of them first, that's the one I can watch, and then the other one I can't. So I saw the American Office first, and so I tried to watch the British Office, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't even make it through a single episode. And not because I thought it was bad or anything. It was just so jarring. I didn't enjoy it, but...
Yeah, like, I watched the UK Office first, and then I remember getting the import of the DVD of season 1 of The Office, because like, this was before you could torrent things or anything like that. So I had to, like, that was the only way I could get it, so it was this import. The first season is like, it pretty much just tries to be the UK Office, and I just wasn't clicking with it. And then I think, like, for me, I can kind of live with both of them quite well. Like, I love the UK Office, but but I think equally I also love The American Office. That kind of seasons 2 till 6 I think is like some of the best comedy on the go, and I always consider them just like kind of forks in the road, that this is like a certain version and then this version, and like the fact that I both like them means I don't kind of almost feel I need to pick a side. That if I had to pick one out of the two, I'd pick the UK one, because it's only like 2 seasons and a special, and that's like probably the equivalent of a season and a bit of The American Office. It's crazy. Like, we really do just do like 6 episode seasons, like focus on the quality and move on. Whereas like the American Offices have to do a lot more. And I think, like, I love The American Office, but I think the UK one is much better comedy.
Well, I mean, I can't speak to it too much because I haven't seen that one, but I do think that the tradition of shorter seasons for the British productions helps them. I will say, though, that there is another head-to-head in which I think the Americans win, and that is the updated version of Sherlock Holmes, which in America is called Elementary, and then you guys obviously have Sherlock, which is hugely popular overseas. Like, that Sherlock is just as popular in America, I would say, as it is over there. And I think Elementary is miles better. But that's pretty rare when you're taking something that's so, like, uniquely British. It's just hard to translate. I don't know. I also don't know why America feels like it has to do this all the time. Because, I mean, it's not like we only steal from the Brits. We steal from literally everyone. So, like, if it's worked in Asia, we're going to steal it, and we're going to make a white dude version, and it's going to suck. So, like, we have a long storied tradition of this, or of taking from, I don't know, say samurai movies and being like, Akira Kurosawa did some cool stuff, let's steal it and make it into some westerns, you know?
Yeah, Star Wars is basically robbed from everything.
Yes,
like,
that's exactly what I was thinking of, actually.
Like,
I was like,
America.
I'm not going to bring up Star
We're going to
Wars,
steal from Flash Gordon.
but that's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, it's okay. None of the Star Wars podcast guys are here. You can get away with it.
And then, I mean, we got The Departed, which is based on Infernal Affairs, this Hong Kong movie, and then we gave it an Oscar, which is a travesty because it's an okay movie, but Infernal Affairs is a million times better.
I love The Departed.
It's okay. I mean, it's a good movie. That's not my problem, but I mean, if you already made a phenomenal movie, why do you have to make an American version? Let the Right One In is another example. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo awful, is another example.
Actually,
like, why?
I will defend The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Like, I think that's actually a superior remake to the Swedish version. I actually think it's more in tune with the book. Despite, like, all these American and British actors kind of doing the Swedish accents, I actually think it's better myself. I don't think Let the Right One In, like, I'm so annoyed that they're now making a TV series in America for Let the Right One In. It's like, dude, the movie didn't work. Like, please don't do this. Like, don't go down that road. Infernal Affairs, I think it's a brilliant movie, and it's actually a brilliant trilogy. I actually think The Departed, I think it's the performances that, like, make it so wonderfully unique. So yeah, I think it works sometimes, but then equally, like, the amount of times the horror stories, like, it's like they get it just so damn wrong so many of the times that we don't need a language version. Like, watch a movie with subtitles, it's not a big deal. It just
frustrates me because, like, okay, so there are obviously discussions you can have about which one is better. Say, if we took Infernal Affairs or The Departed, and we could have a hour-long discussion about the pros and cons of each of those movies. My problem is, is why. And the thing that bothers me is there's an element of xenophobia there. Like, Americans won't watch stories about places that aren't America, and if it's not in English, they won't watch it. If there's subtitles, they won't watch it. That's frustrating to me because, like, so much of art is very specific to a context. So, I mean, we've got the all sort of stories that are, say, uniquely Japanese, like Ghost in the Shell, or, you know, like a movie about the Great Wall of China, and then you have to make it about white people. That drives me crazy. Like, it's not even that. It's like there are stories that work better in their original context and have an extra depth in their original context. So, like, even if you're taking out completely, say, the social justice diversity viewpoint, like, we should have more diversity in stories, like, I'm talking purely storytelling right here. sometimes the story is better that way. You know, like this idea that we have to
Yeah.
lesser versions of original art, I guess, is just really frustrating. And unless you're going to be updating it in a way that has something new to say, I don't know, there's just this element of, well, we can't watch it because we'll have to read subtitles. We can't watch it because it's filled with Asian people instead of white people. And that just gets really frustrating to me. The thing that The Departed did that worked is that they very specifically tied it to like mob and gang culture in America, which updated it nicely for the American context. Whereas, yeah.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's definitely when it works the best, like The Departed there. Kind of like it takes the idea as opposed to take the movie, recast it, like translate the like script and then put it out. Like The House of Cards, I think, is one of the best examples of an adaptation. Like that's a British TV show from the 80s. Like it's originally a book here in the UK as well. And what they did was that they took it and they went, let's make this an American version, like put it in our political system. And I think House of Cards is one of the best adaptations in recent years. And because like they got like, okay, we're not going to make a beat for beat remake. There's elements that kind of tie in, but like no one wants to see like an American version of the Great Wall of China or ridiculous things like that. But you know, like that's inherently Chinese. How do you make that into an American like version? Like they did it in South Park. They had a Great Wall in South Park, and that was fine. But like it doesn't work when you go, right, we're going to make a movie about China, but we're going to just shove a load of Americans in it. It doesn't work.
Another good example here is Veep. So the British version is The Thick of It.
Oh, tell me you love The Thick of It.
Of course I love The Thick of It.
This is a relief. I was worried I was going to have to go in my fainting chair for the rest of this podcast.
No, man.
I'm sorry if the Scottish accent differs very much from Malcolm Tucker and Jamie.
This isn't The Thick of It. This is In the Loop, but I still sometimes confuse my coworkers by, you know, like, lemon difficult and calling things by, what did he say? I gotta look it up now. That's gonna drive me lemon squeezy. Anyways, I love The Thick of It.
Yeah.
Difficult, lemon difficult.
Oh, I'll get it, but for the end of the episode.
Okay. Anyways,
yeah, like definitely like lemon squeezy, something along those lines.
Yeah, it's difficult, lemon difficult. But anyways, okay. So I love The Thick of It, and it's amazing when they did Veep. They did that exact thing. They didn't try and make a second version of The Thick of It. They took the things that were the best about that show, like so this like biting critique of hypocrisy and the, you know, bureaucracy of politics and how inefficient and incompetent everyone is, and they turned that into what does that look like in America? So that's where I think that there's more to say than just like, oh, let's redo the jokes.
Yeah, like I think what works kind of really well about like the Thick of It In the Loop, and it's easy peasy lemon squeezy, which is kind of like something you learn from it as a kid here, and kind of like the UK, like, oh, it was so easy, it's easy peasy lemon squeezy. And like I think what kind of, it's almost that kind of loop that, say things like The West Wing and American culture was so infused into the UK kind of the 90s. Like you had your Friends, your Frasers, your Seinfelds, your Exiles, all that stuff was being pummeled right through into the UK, and we kind of relied a lot more on that. So people like kind of your Armando Nicini, Peter Serafinowicz, Sam Bain, Jesse Armstrong, all these kind of people that were involved in like Peep Show, The Thick of It, Alan Partridge Show, like all these kind of amazing British programs. They were getting that kind of American culture, even things like The West Wing and American news and media. We were kind of getting all of that stuff. So that there's almost this kind of thing that, oh, look at the Brits kind of looking at American culture sneering. They don't kind of get it. But we've kind of been so infused with that world. Like, you know, the American headline, the American, you know, politics, it's like front page headline news here all the time. Like, you've got like a culture which is kind of so ingrained into it from kind of the West Wing that we know all about American culture. So that when it comes to these writers having to write about an American perspective in like a Veep thing. Like you don't almost need to be there to write about it. Whereas I think it's harder for American writers because they don't kind of have the idea of what British culture necessarily is to kind of write about it as confidently, because you tune into America, you wouldn't know what's going necessarily on in the UK. Like I think something like Brexit only just popped up in the news when it happened in America. Like there's not that kind of infusion. Oh, I know what's going on. Like I'm sure most Americans can tell you who the British leader is, what kind of the party is in charge. Whereas you'll get every UK person like, oh yeah, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, WikiLeaks, rape scandals, all this. Everyone can tell you about it and conversational about it. And I think that's missing from America to UK, and that affects the writing for adaptation.
So we have a term in international relations called soft power, and it refers to power that is not like definable. So an example of hard power would be like the American military. An example of soft power is McDonald's. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have this ubiquity of American culture that's international. So like it's the standard for basically everything. I mean, you usually do most of your international business or politics in English now. This sort of thing. When I was living in China, they had just shelves and shelves and shelves of American movies everywhere. I had zero trouble keeping up with American culture in China. That doesn't translate back. Americans don't do that. Americans take that and change it. We do that with food too, is a great example of we take the best kinds of food and Americanize them. But that's why I think it's so hard for them to understand different cultures, is because we've put ourselves at the center of everything for so long. So that kind of cultural, I guess, conversation mostly flows one way, which is very frustrating, especially if you like international relations. But
yeah, and I think it's kind of like fascinating in a way that, like, I always think of it like the special relationship is what it was called in the early 2000s between the UK and America. But that was really just like America dominating the UK. Like we had it classed as like the UK was actually America's poodle. And I think that's that kind of thing that American culture just kind of goes out to the world. And like for the most part, very little of that translates back into kind of American cinemas, American TV shows. And like people like yourself that like love the British kind of TV shows, outside of the Doctor Who, which I'm sure is easily available there, you need to go down the YouTube rabbit holes. You need to kind of seek it out on like streaming platforms, and kind of it's not shoved in your face, so you've got to actively seek it out. And it's kind of fascinating like that's almost what the world has been, kind of the American way, that in the 90s we had all of it on the TV shows here. We had like the import DVD market was huge in the early 2000s to get American films here into the UK. It's like it must be frustrating that now, but also kind of equally pleasant that it's so much easier for you to kind of reach out to the world and pull the stuff in, the bake-offs, the Infernal Affairs, all these different cultures.
And I told you I had that East Asian phase, which included Infernal Affairs. I would have to go to these rundown, like, out of the way video stores where a guy would have like a whole bunch of ripped DVDs of like movies, and I think back on it, and it's basically like a guy with a trench coat being like, "What you want? I got some Wong Kar-wai here," So I mean, finding like these, because the thing is that I hate dubbing, so I was always trying to track down the original language ones, and that was tough sometimes. So like I actually had to go out and like dig for stuff. Now that it's all online, it's incredibly easy to have an international like cultural landscape. I think it's more of a mindset than it is anything logistical. Like you talked about Doctor Who. Doctor Who didn't really become popular in America until the 11th Doctor. Like Matt Smith's first season was the one that was like, I actually saw billboards for it. And I was like, what is happening? And people started like, I call them the normals, the muggles, the people that don't spend 3 hours driving around trying to find a non-dubbed version of Infernal Affairs. Those people started watching it. So like I'd have friends. I was like, you have to watch this show. It's amazing. And then they were finally watching it. it can happen, and Doctor Who is now huge here. I mean, like, my family watches the Christmas special. I mean, it just takes time, and I think it's easier with British things because it is in English. So I think that's really the big stopping points. People hate subtitles. Whatever.
I must ask, like, is like a Scottish Doctor Who going down well? Peter Capaldi is the Doctor. I think there was even talk that they were going to subtitle him at one point.
Yeah, see, I don't even notice.
Scottish accent that he might struggle to break
and this is
America.
why I think that, by the way, watch what you want to watch. I'm never going to tell anybody to watch anything they don't want to watch, but this is one reason why I'm grateful for the fact that I love international culture, is because I learn a lot and I see different perspectives, and I think that's valuable. I can understand a Scots accent. You know, I have zero problem understanding Peter Capaldi. I did want to say too, have you seen Episodes?
Yes, I have. The Matt LeBlanc, what's his
Stephen
name?
Mangan.
Yeah, I actually saw him at half-time on a football. Like, in a way that you've just talked about Doctor Who and Episodes, I've seen Karen Gillan and Stephen, his name, forget mine, and like in the past year or two, like be on a football pitch at halftime doing an interview. I saw Karen Gillan at a Celtic game doing like the charity raffle draw, and then I saw Stephen on a pitch a few months ago, and he's a Spurs fan like myself, on the pitch at halftime goading some football fans and talking about what it's like to be a dad. So like, yeah, like I've seen kind of been in the same presence as them through football, which is a bit odd.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I bring it up is because it's specifically about British TV writers that come to America and try and write an American version of their show, and how horrible it is. And how much
so
of
funny.
A culture clash it is. And it's I've seen the first 2 seasons. There's a lot of good there. There's a couple specific scenes where I laughed so much I cried. And for me, it was especially exciting because I'm such a huge fan of Green Wing. To see those two together again was pretty cool. But that's why I bring it up, because it's about this kind of culture clash that we've been talking about like trying to translate British humor to American humor. And I think that one actually succeeds quite nicely, but it's a very niche kind of idea, because, I mean, shows and movies about making movies have a tendency to do poorly. And then you've also got British humor and British touchstones in an American show. It's a very interesting kind of unique show in that way.
Yeah, it's really meta with like the Matt LeBlanc thing. Like I've only ever seen the first season, and like that they want to cast Matt LeBlanc because I think it was like some sort of teacher role where it was meant to be kind of a Richard Dreyfuss. I don't know if he was in Harry Potter or something like that. He's kind of like an old traditional British actor, and then they wanted like the American hot thing in it, Matt LeBlanc. So Matt LeBlanc kind of gets parachuted in, so he's kind of playing on that kind of Joey stereotype, and I think it really it's like his British career like exploded it and everything that. Like this whole kind of, even with like, I think with podcast, TV shows, everything's all much smaller now, where the idea of like cross pollination between the two like countries is higher than ever before. And I think more people are getting insight into American culture in a more niche way. And I think like British culture is getting more exported out into America and the world through podcasting. Like that podcast, what is it? Like My Dad Made a Porno or something like that. It's like the #1 podcast in the world just now. And it's this British show, like talking about a porno story in a British way with like guests like Daisy Ridley. It's huge. And I think even an example like this today, that was their first time ever podcasting, and it's all about that commonality between British culture going out to American culture coming back. It's real interesting.
It is very interesting, and I think, I mean, podcasting is one way, but I think it just is super general. It is the internet. The internet has allowed people to talk about their interests in a way that has never happened before. So like even 10 years ago, we wouldn't be doing this, you know? Twitter, Tumblr. You know, I found, by the way, one of my absolute favorite shows, British shows is, oh God, what was it? My Mad Fat Diary.
Oh, yes.
So My Mad Fat Diary is not big in America. You cannot get it in America. It's even hard to find on YouTube. I found it because of Tumblr, because there was these hilarious like GIFs and quotes and stuff popping up on my feed. I was like, what is this show? It looks hilarious. And I had to work really hard to track it down. But I would never have found it if it weren't for social media, because it's not shown on any American channels. It's not on Netflix, not on Hulu, none of that. So it's just a matter of people in England liking it and putting it on social media, and then me here in Chicago going, oh, that looks interesting, you know? So it's just another way to connect, I guess. It's exciting. And I mean, if you...
And hopefully on this show that you like all your recommendations of British TV shows coming from an American, like any of our American fans will hopefully like go, wow, thanks to that American and not that British guy, I was able to find out about all these British shows. What is that British guy getting paid to do? Why is he talking about American shows all the time? Get rid of him.
Yeah, it's fun. It's, I mean, I think you've got a really unique, especially television. I mean, I'm a television nerd anyway. Like, that's my true love. I love movies too, but television is just my medium of choice, I guess. And I think British television is some of the best in the world. So I truly enjoy like the breadth of cool stuff that ends up on British television, and I will continue to watch every single new episode of Great British Bake Off and Would I Lie to You and all of that.
That seems a great way to finish our show with like giving a Britain a big pat on the back for once.
Yeah, good job, guys.
Like, exactly. Well done, everyone. You may have voted to leave Europe, but boy howdy, your TV shows are great. So that makes up for everything. So thank you so much for coming on today, Andy. It's been an absolute pleasure for me to podcast with you, and I know Matt's so happy that you're filling in. So yeah, if people want to get in contact with you, and if they want to find out about all your British tastes in TV shows, like where can they find you on the internet, and where can they tune in to hear your thoughts on, you know, Women at Warp, for example?
Yeah, the easiest place to find me is Twitter at First Time Trek, and you know, I can give you an itemized list of everything that you need to watch at any time. And you can also catch me on the podcast Women at Warp, where 4 women Star Trek fans talk about women on Star Trek, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and if you want to find out about American culture from me and a bit of British culture, you can find me at Lee_Nostromo. And like we've got loads of podcasts, like the Nerd Nuptial team, they've talked a bit about British TV show. They're not a fan of the UK office either, so that's caused a bit of animosity between me and Tristan's wife, so a bit frustrating there. And then Star Wars, there's a Star Wars podcast, Aggressive Negotiations, where they haven't yet to admit that Star Wars is pretty much ripped off of all these different movies, but I'm sure we'll get there one day.
It's a samurai Akira Kurosawa movie in space, let's face it. It's real.
Exactly. And like, yeah, and like, obviously, yeah, check out Nerd and Beyond, our partner just now. You're getting some amazing news there, and they cover British movies and TV shows as well. So yeah, definitely they give them a check out. So thank you so much for coming on today, Andy. It's been a real pleasure, and yeah, hopefully we'll have you on again one day.
Sounds good. Thanks for giving me a place to talk about the Great British Bake Off.
This has been a pleasure for me because I've never been able to talk about it. So this is purely for me. So thank you very much. And yeah, we'll see you all on the flip side.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.